Hey everybody, welcome back to Engaging the Phenomenon, and welcome back to another episode of Ask UFO Twitter. In this episode of Ask UFO Twitter, the question is, or the topic of discussion is how I got into UFOs. So, how I got into UFOs, some people may know, I had some very, strange experiences early on, and not just particularly with UFOs per se, but things you could categorize as non-human intelligence, out-of-body experiences, and different things along those lines. And I think, having those experiences, and those experiences were very vivid and lucid to me. They stood out to me as something that was very significant. So those stood with me. And going on from there, even at an early age, I remember seeing things like E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and Fire in the Sky, and all these kind of, that media was around in the early 90s. It was pretty much all over. And even as early as elementary school, I remember seeing people like Stanton Friedman on primetime television, and I was blown away with his conviction and the facts that he was presenting, that even at a young age I could really start thinking about the legitimacy of the UFO issue in particular. And there were also things like the late night UFO files or mystery files, and all those kind of TV shows that covered different UFO cases. And I also happened to live in the Hudson Valley. And just a decade or even a few years earlier, when I was younger, in the 80s, when I was born, there was this huge UFO wave in the Hudson Valley. And many people that I knew growing up, whether they were friends of the family or, just different people in the area, had just literally experienced this big UFO wave with highly credible witnesses. And Dr. J. Allen Hynek actually investigated the case himself somewhat, and wrote a book, or he co-authored a book with a few people, called Night Siege, the Hudson Valley UFO. And that case was really, even in the early 90s when I was very young, fresh, and I had spoken to plenty of people about it. And, all those things culminating from my earlier experiences to this kind of media parade of UFOs, and my area where I'm growing up, just having this wave occur literally just a few years, and during the time I was born, and as I was growing up, it was still very prominent in the area somewhat. All those things together, mixed with my curiosity, really propelled me to take this as something very serious and worth investigating, because I really had thought, even more so, that there was an apparent cover-up. So that makes you even more curious, and wanting to really understand what the truth and the reality of it all is. So that's just a basic of how I got involved into UFOs.
So the way in which I got myself involved in the subject of UFOs is also the reason why I cannot dismiss some of the more esoteric and consciousness-related elements on the discussion. So to cut a long story short, I was suffering from a depression in my life. I was introduced to some books, and these books had a profound effect on my state of mental and spiritual well-being. And from that point, I started researching consciousness studies from various points of observation, from academic to esoteric. I had not got involved in the UFO subject at this point. Then a little further down the line, I entered into another depression. This time it was because I felt I'd digested a large volume of information, come to certain realizations, and had no idea where to go from there. I had no idea what to do with the understandings I had come to. And so one night, sitting on my bed, I sincerely asked the universe to provide me with something in this physical life, something I could actually do that was representative of the understandings and realizations I'd come to through my studies. And within a week of me asking for something to come into my life, My best friend, who is a profoundly important individual in my spiritual growth, as I am in his, showed me the documentary Unacknowledged by Stephen Greer. This was my first real introduction into the world of ufology, and although my opinion on Greer has shifted somewhat, I still consider this documentary to be incredibly important, and it was my initial catalyst into seeing legitimacy in the UFO issue. But what really took me by surprise, and was ultimately the most affirming aspect of this whole scenario, was when the idea of utilizing coherent thought and intention to initiate a contact scenario with other intelligences was introduced near the end of the documentary. Because, you see, for me, this concept was so completely in alignment with the request I made of the universe sitting on my bed that week prior to seeing the documentary. This concept was so directly correlated to my desire to use my knowledge of the conscious mind whilst in this physical life. It was actually quite shocking for me, and so I was convinced straight away that this type of communication could be achieved, because it honestly seemed to be a direct response to my own request to do something in this world that was attributable to my understandings of consciousness. And so I can understand that if you came into this subject from a nuts and bolts perspective, then the transition into consciousness discussions may be difficult or unpalatable or uncomfortable. But for me, on a personal level, it was so affirming that I had literally no doubt whatsoever that this type of contact could be achieved. And then, as many of you know, I began to go outside and attempt to initiate this type of contact, and I absolutely had success. And after a couple of months, I had the most vivid experiences with orange orbs of light. Undeniable experiences, life-changing experiences. I have done some videos on these, so you can go onto Project Unity YouTube channel, have a scroll down, and you can find videos where I've spoken about my own experiences. And this is why I can't let go of the UFO subject in general, but it's also why I will never step away from the consciousness discussion in relation to UFOs. These abilities, these conscious abilities are real. I know this to be a fact. I'm just incapable of proving it objectively to the satisfaction of a scientist, but that's alright for now, because for the time being, at least I know it's real, and there are many others who know the same, just like James Ian Doley from Engage in the Phenomenon, who has had incredible experiences. There are many others who know that we are capable of initiating this type of contact through non-local consciousness, through coherent thought, through intention. And that is why I'm here. I just want to learn more and help others learn more alongside me. And I just want to say a big thank you to James from Engaging the Phenomenon for keeping this Ask UFO Twitter series going. I think it's a great idea, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the rest of the origin stories of people who have contributed.
I was born in alien country. Growing up in New Mexico, aliens are part of the culture. While some still roll their eyes when I try to talk about aliens, the state is still covered in every tourist product you could think of in regards to the Roswell crash in 1947. It was common for at least one kid in my class to have an alien head t-shirt, if maybe only due to the plethora of them available in our state. So the idea has always been there for me. On March 14th, 1997, the world woke up to a major media news report about how hundreds of residents in Phoenix claimed to have seen a mile-long craft hover over their metropolis. I was 11 years old. I watched the news segment showing the giant mothership hovering over this city and wondered, they are visiting us? Time passed, and most came to the conclusion it was flares. I thought with confidence, only a child can entrust to adults, so they aren't visiting us. As I reached 13, I remembered seeing Linda Moulton Howe's segments about cattle mutilations on national news stations. I was immediately intrigued. I've spent a lot of time in libraries and used bookshops. The 001 section of the Dewey Decimal System was related to mysteries, and within this tiny section of the library, I found books about Roswell and Hitler's flying saucers. The curiosity was there. The questions were there. The facts were waiting to be found. I wanted to know. As I've grown older and pushed through challenging times, no matter how hard it ever got, I always tried to remember how small I am, how tiny I am in comparison to the giant cosmos that we live in. The question has always been a tiny light for me to look up at and to think, hey, are we alone? And through the pure joy of curiosity, I've seen the truth shake out. UFOs are real. Area 51 is, in fact, real, and so are aliens. And one day we will know that.
So, how did I get into UFOs? Well, this is Brandon Thomas with Expanding Reality Podcast. I wanted you guys to know how grateful I am and to thank you for including me in this. This is great. This is such a cool forum. How I got into UFOs is just my sought for the mysteries of the universe. I'm shooting for that. I'm trying to figure out what the hell's going on here, right? I think that all of us have that inquisitiveness in our minds, and especially the ones that pursue this so heavily and so actively. It is something that is part of the grand mystery. It's part of the big stuff. It's part of the consciousness problem. It's part of the what the hell happens after we die problem. We don't know. There are just so many mysteries out here, and the UFO phenomena in particular is so interesting because there's so many mysterious elements to it, and they're all related. That's the point, inevitably, that I got to with all of this, is we don't know what the hell's going on, and it's all connected. And it's like we're pretty close, I think, to asking some really big questions. But the second you feel that way, as you know in the UFO community, it just goes bloop and steps one step out of your comprehension. And it's been doing that forever, which again makes it more mysterious, makes it something you have to figure out what is going on and pursue. So it's the ultimate mystery, right? It's the ultimate art. Is it little green men or entities coming from other planets? Is it interdimensional beings? Are they coming up here from a hollow earth, which that topic alone is fascinating? Are they just advanced craft that our government or some breakaway civilization happened to harness, and then they figured this stuff out? Maybe it's an ancient civilization that left Earth, and then some cataclysm happened or something like that, and then now what we think are UFOs are actually just past humans. It's our ancients with way higher technology than what we're capable of doing today. That alone blows your damn mind. So it's all the associated phenomena with it. Are they, as Dr. Michael P. Masters says in his book, Identified Flying Objects, are they future humans coming back in time machines? Now we're talking UFOs and time travel. All of this is fascinating. And then, of course, you can tie in the fact that Bigfoot may be associated with this stuff. And now you're talking about Bigfoot. It's just so mysterious. It is so interesting. And I know that you listening to this and watching this right now empathize with that. And that's how I got into it. I wanted to know what is going on. I ask way too many damn questions. Clearly I'm verbose and I can talk about it. On my show, I've been grateful enough and had the opportunity to interview some incredible people on the subject. And we keep having these wonderful conversations about it that just blows my mind every single time. I'm not one of those that plants my flag. I don't know what's going on with this, as any honest person that looks at the phenomena does. James Fox and I even talked about this. He completely agrees. Now, we have a preference, or you might have one that you favor over another, just intellectually, just because of the thought experiment of it. I'm a big dimensions person for sure, and of course, the future humans coming back in time machines, man. Come on. That's incredible. So that's how I got into UFOs. It's just a never-ending quest for the exploration of the mysterious, and that's it. And it's one of the ultimate mysteries. So let's keep looking into it.
What's going on, James, everyone watching and listening and engaging the phenomenon? My name is Jeff Whitebear Kingsbury. I'm one of the hosts here at Strange Recon Podcast, contacting you from SV Wintune, where I operate out of. We are currently in the northern Great Lakes, heading towards Lake Superior to check out some spooky anonymous lights action. Anyways, James, just want to say, man, the first time I discovered one of your videos, I know you wouldn't flood Reddit with your stuff. Someone else was doing it. I think the guy's name was Jeeves Gandoli or something like that. I was like, I'm not interested in CE5. In fact, I kind of think it's but, I shouldn't admit that, but it's the truth. You hear enough of the debunkers and you start thinking, well, God, someone's money's getting stolen and they're not, so-and-so's being accused of faking it, you don't really give much attention to it at all. And which is, sometimes you have to go through and do the research yourself. Something just went flying off my shelf there. That's interesting. Anyways, then I watched your video and I'm like, this guy brings a completely credible conversation to the topic. He's like, and you're thought-provoking and you inspire curiosity, which is the only thing that matters to me. Your videos bring a perspective to CE5 and stuff like that and the phenomenon, which It's like, it's kind of what it was missing. I don't know, maybe it was just me, but I know many people, actually, it can't just be me, that hears about CE5 from the wrong person. You don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So that's why I'm continuing to watch your stuff. That's why I'm continuing to tell people about your channel, and why I'm happy to see you grow, because you bring a conversation that made a material nuts and bolts guy like myself, a military man, say, hey, well, wait a second here. Maybe there's something to it. Let's check it out. Enough kissing your arse, though. I mean, get over yourself. Seriously. What got me into this topic? I'm one of those people that got to start early. Okay? I decided to rush the other kids at lunch at my babysitter's, eating a sandwich, and I died. It took minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes of no breathing and heartbeat to delodge the sandwich after they got me to the hospital. I'd already been minutes and minutes and minutes before the EMTs got there. And then after that, I started seeing some pretty weird stuff. And sometimes other people saw it too. I started seeing things in a very different way. Almost like I would see things metaphorically, with like an image rather than what was actually there. My mother, she thought that I was experiencing stuff, but she thought that small group panic was setting in, because the way I was getting the other kids to react over them saying, I saw it too, or something. Until one day she saw it. Okay? Now, I've had pretty close contact with some pretty spooky stuff and many witnesses up close, but it didn't really, this one was the one that counted. And my mother and I fed the horses the same time every night in Taunton, Massachusetts, 1996, 5:30 p.m., daytime still. We're walking back from the horses. We see up in the sky, thousands of feet, a triangular aircraft, thousands of feet up. We take another couple steps, everything goes silent. We live next to a swamp. Anyways, but this thing is suddenly right over our heads. The trees are flexing and bending, and it's the only thing we can hear now. All the animals and all the insects have gone silent. The branches are banging together. It was suddenly very startling. It was no longer thousands of feet over our head. It was hundreds of feet over our head, and it was from our neighbor's house to the dead-end road, right down the street, roughly 200 yards, and equilateral triangle, 3 extremely brilliant lights on the corners. Now I would say they're probably massive LEDs, honestly. Maybe they're the propulsion, I don't know, but now I'm a sailor, I'm a military man, I'm retired now. I would say that they were just massive LEDs, but I don't know, what do I know? This thing did some spooky action. My mother has got some varying story than myself. It slid sideways over our swamp. That part we kind of remember very well. We got a great look at it from the side. It was amazing. Raw metal black aft part with weird grooves down it. Almost looked like Fano clippers clipped away the black and left raw metal. And it was just wild. And it hovered silently, went over to the nursing home and stuff, and it was just wild. And it changed me forever. I'm Jeff Kingsbury, Strange Recon Podcast. Come check
kind of want to make this video to just share with you why I'm doing what I'm doing and how it started. I think I was probably about 7, 8, or 9. Around that time where my dad got a hold of this thing called Worldwide UFO. It was a public information center out of Orlando, Florida, believe it or not. Now it's the strip mall. But then it was a plethora of hundreds of UFO, paranormal, anything you could possibly think of that were on these things. These videos, you would basically send them $20 and they would send you a video. And I think if you send them $40, you'd get one free or something. So it was amazing. Some of the stuff was just like some of the most amazing things that made the foundation for me of why I wanted to do this. And people like Linda Moulton Howe, there's Bud Hopkins, there was just like great videos, Stanton Friedman, there was a lot of good videos we got. But you'd roll the dice, you'd just go off of like a one sentence or like a one line of description of what it is, and sometimes you'd get a killer movie, and other times you would get a video that was a guy that was like 80 years old working a VHS camcorder on his shoulder that had no business doing it, and you get about 3 minutes in and you have to turn it off because you're going to puke because it's just your motion sickness is going crazy. But other times there's just like some gems in there. David Adair was one of those ones. David Adair was amazing. I'm going to do a video about David Adair. I know there's some videos out there, but I think that's one of the most underrated stories. So you get those little gems in there, you know. So I grew up my whole life looking at that. I grew up my whole life thinking this is real. My dad had experiences in the 50s and 60s with multiple people, witnesses in public. The first time, the second time with just, you know, a neighbor that saw it, and it was just like, this is real. We just grew up thinking that, you know, it wasn't. I think the only thing that was weird was the people that didn't think it was real, and they put you in the category of, you know, being crazy or weird, or you had to wear a tinfoil hat or something like that. And then the DOD comes out and says, oh, these are real. Here's videos. So, you know, after all those years, you think back all that time. So I think it's pretty cool. Get a little vindication, I guess, for my dad for all those years. And I really didn't have that experience or deep found need to do this until I had experience of my own with my wife, and we got to see some orange orbs. And that's still a story that she doesn't admit in public or to most people. So she'll probably kick my ass for saying it here. But we got to see that in the car one night driving over the river, and it was just out of the blue, and it was great. So I think that kind of set me on a journey, and finally, you know, just getting to this and saying, you know what, we can talk about this out loud now. Nobody's going to show up in a van and haul me away. I mean, they still might for other reasons, but it's not going to be for talking about UFOs, right? The New York Times can make it happen on the and put it on the news everywhere across the world. You know, I think I'm okay. So I got some cool worldwide UFO stuff I'm going to share with you. You know, pop it up here and there. And check this one out, you know, in this video. So, and then I'm going to dig. I got some of these tapes. I actually have these VHS tapes still. We got them. So I'm going to take those, and some of them I haven't seen anywhere else. So some of them I'm going to dig out. I'm going to digitize. We're going to make some really cool little clips from there. Some of the fun things that I've seen from these clips. And who knows? I mean, maybe we'll bring it back, the whole worldwide UFO. But thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to me ramble on. If you want to talk about something cool, hit me up. Let's talk about it. You know, whatever you want to talk about.
Hi, I'm Corinne. Some of you may know me as Aerhereal Realm on Twitter. I've been holding back telling my story, but it's time for me to step up. I've been a part of James's non-local group for several years now. Hi, James. And when I saw him pose the question how we got into UFOs, I thought it's time. So other than watching the original Star Trek and Cosmos series back in the 70s, I've had no interest in UFOs whatsoever. But that all changed in April 2014. I was in the backyard meditating when a larger-than-life being came into my mind's eye and told me that there were other beings that I wasn't aware of yet, and he was going to show me more of the truth. So he started like rapid firing names, and I recognized some of them as stars and constellations, but he started talking faster and faster, and I couldn't keep up. So I don't know what all of them are right now. Hopefully someday I do learn. But then he said that some of them were friendly, and I needed to be careful about who I was talking to. Then this other little guy showed up, like over on the other side of my vision, and he started showing me all these different spacecraft that I wasn't familiar with. He showed me how some of them are controlled through thought, and others were controlled through touch. And one of them reminded me of a gyroscope, but it was in between the walls of the craft. Not familiar with anything like that. I did later find a patent online for something similar, but I don't know. I'm a chronic Googler, so I'm always looking stuff up. That's how I came across James and his CE5 initiative, by trying to get answers to what the heck happened. At the end of this meditation, there were no more words from the larger being. The little one had already disappeared. But there was this intense feeling of peace and love. And then all of a sudden there was this blinding white light, and I got this sharp pain in my forehead, and I was suddenly back to myself. And that's what started my search into this, trying to find the answers. I have a very long history of dealing with the paranormal since birth, really. But I've never experienced anything like this before. So over the rest of the summer, my family and I were sky watching, and I began seeing lights and things in the sky doing, zigzags really fast, and things that I still haven't been able to debunk, and I do try. I seriously do try. About a year later, in April of 2015, I went through 3 weeks of some high strangeness, and that story's too long to talk about right now. Maybe some other day. And then I found Mike Clelland's book, The Messengers, which raised a whole lot more questions about my past. So make of it what you will. I've since become a certified Reiki master and taken a class in astrophysics, and my quest continues. So I will see y'all guys on the webs. Love and light.
Hey guys, today we're going to be going over what got me into the UFO topic. So, as a kid growing up in the 90s, the UFO topic was always in a lot of the culture and media I consumed. Just something that I never really gave much thought to. I thought it was kind of silly. And then in 2017, I want to say the holiday season, a friend of mine sent me a private message with a link to an interview with a pilot about a UFO, and it was David Fravor. And I watched the interview, and I went into it thinking, he was one of those interviews, right, with the UFO people, not knowing what it was, and it was very convincing, very compelling. So I dug a little further after watching that interview, spoke to some people. I had a relative who's a CB in the Navy, been there for 15, 20 years, and I called her up about ATIP, and I explained the amount of money they spent on it, and her response to me was, you'd be surprised what the military spends money on. So she kind of checked me there a little bit in my expectations, and then I went on to speak to other folks, people who had been in the Navy for a lot longer, Annapolis grads, and the words I was told directly were, I believe it. I don't know what that entails precisely, but I was told from people I know that this was something worth believing, that there's more information. So that's why I'm here. I'm here to see if there's more information, more importantly.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the Ask UFO Twitter. Be sure to check out everybody's media that has participated in this video. Check out their socials. I will have links in the descriptions of all the participants. And thank you so much, UFO Twitter, for doing everything you're doing, keeping the conversation going, coming up with information, sharing everything you do across social media, because especially at this time, it's so critical that we communicate this, the UFO reality, out to other social circles, while the iron is hot, so to speak, with all this stuff going on in the social media and all that's coming up that we know of. Now more than ever is it important that we do what we can and keep pushing this forward. So thank you again, guys. We'll see you next time. Take care.